crucifix with scenes of the Passion is a beautiful crucifix from the 13th century, more precisely 1230 to 1240 AD. It was hidden in a private European collection for many years and was finally brought to the Cleveland Museum of Art in 1995. Crafted in Pisa, Italy, where Franciscan nuns tended to holy relics, it is constructed of wooden panels and decorated with tempera and gold. At 185 centimeters tall and 160 centimeters wide, large crosses such as this one from this time period are among the earliest surviving examples of Italian panel painting. The Cleveland Museum of Art is very lucky to have this crucifix, in that it is very rare, for very few crosses with Passion and Resurrection scenes on the apron survive today. It is even more unique in that it is excellently preserved. While they are a rare find today, the concept of aprons, or the panels flanking the torso of Christ, on crucifixes was typical of Pisan pieces between 1230 and 1260 AD. After this time, the concept of aprons on crucifixes became much less popular. For example, the crucifix by Coppo di Marcovillato in San Gimignano from around 1250 AD is a very famous crucifix from the time period that also embraces the apron concept. In fact, the artist of the crucifix at the Cleveland Museum of Art may have known of the Di Marcovillato crucifix and may have even been inspired by it. As I said before, this cross depicts scenes of the Passion and Resurrection of Jesus Christ. The right-hand sign depicts scenes of the death of Christ and the resurrection. In descending order from top to bottom, the viewer sees the deposition from the cross, where Jesus is taken down from the cross, the lamentation, where Jesus' death is being mourned, and finally, the various Marys at the temple. What is unique about this last scene of the Marys at the temple is that Jesus' shroud is hovering near the cave, where it is usually placed over the rock covering the tomb. The left-hand side of the cross portrays images of the Passion. In descending order, again, from top to bottom, the viewer sees the betrayal of Christ, where Jesus is betrayed by Judas with a kiss, the flagellation, where Pilate is enthroned, and finally, Christ carrying the cross on the way to Calvary. It is written that the first scene of the left-hand side, where Judas betrays Christ, may have been inspired by the betrayal panel of Di Marcovillato's crucifix, which was mentioned earlier. This is thought because the scene is very similar to the image on Di Marcovillato's crucifix. Both are very crowded and show Judas and Jesus colliding. They also both show Peter cutting off the guard's ear behind Christ as opposed to off to the side, as this image is usually shown. As we go up the cross, we see images near Jesus' left and right hands. At Jesus' right hand, we see the Mourning Virgin and St. John the Baptist. It is common to see Mary and St. John on Jesus' right-hand side because it is held as a place of honor. Normally, Mary and John are accompanied by other Marys and, not often but sometimes, are depicted with angels. However, this crucifix is unique in that on Jesus' left-hand side, we see Saint Bona, the patron of Pisa, and Saint James Major. Saint Bona, who died in 1208, was the trituary of the Canons Regular of St. Augustine, as we know from the habit she is wearing on the crucifix. It is thought that later Bona's cult was furthered by the Franciscan poor St. Clares, who had established themselves in San Martino and who had custody of her remains following her death. Saint Bona was stationed at the church of San Martino, but was most famous for her pilgrimages. Most noted is her pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, where she prayed at the tomb of St. James. This, it is believed, is why she is depicted with St. James Major at Jesus' left hand on the crucifix. The depiction of St. Bona on the crucifix insinuates that the cross was most likely made for the church St. Bona called home, San Martino. Now, As the viewer's eye moves to the top of the cross, called the cimasa, they will see a still surviving panel depicting Mary flanked by angels and the 11 apostles following the resurrection. Only 11 apostles are shown as opposed to 12 because at this point, Judas had betrayed Jesus and hung himself. Above this panel used to be a disc called the clepio, which illustrated Jesus after the ascension. It most likely fell off while the crucifix was being transported. Crosses, such as the one at the Cleveland Museum of Art, were very popular during their time. The large painted crosses, such as the one at the Cleveland Museum of Art, were often suspended high above the altar in the main apse of the church. Smaller crosses were often placed on or just above altars inside the chapels or used in processions. Crucifixes, both large and small, were used to concentrate the spiritual energy of the church and were used as a visual focus for devotion. They also symbolized the Eucharistic sacrament performed by the priest on the altar below. However, there were various depictions of Christ on various crosses used to portray different sides of Christ. Some, such as this cross by Enrico de' Tedici of Pisa, show Christ in the form of the Christus Patiens, illustrating Christ's suffering and death. This practice became popular around 1250 AD, showing Christ's humanity through a sagging body. However, most crucifixes with aprons of the Passion and Resurrection are often paired with the style of the Christus Triumphans, showing Christ's triumph over death and showing Christ as the triumphant Savior of mankind. This is true for the crucifix housed at the Cleveland Museum of Art. Christ's face follows a typical formula developed early in the West, in which Christ is shown with an erect head and wide eyes. His body is pear-shaped or tortoise-shaped. This was a very popular style during this time period, and often the body is shifted to the left to create the illusion of a slight twist in the body. When looking at the hands, the viewer will see that they are separated and the palms face out to reveal the stigmata on the hands. The stigmata are also visible on the feet. Finally, the figure is conceived in separate parts based on the standardized method of representing the body. A great example of this is the double-knobbed knees. The more traditional and Romanesque look of the crucifix reflects the conservative element of Pisan schools during the time and their attempt to resist Byzantine influence. This is seen in the nearly life-size nature of the cross, which is a purely Italian innovation. The scenes on the apron are also highly dramatic, which is another truly Italian aspect of art. However, the stylized depiction, such as the severe hieratic style and uninterrupted flow of the hair and beard, are remnant of Byzantine art. It is clear through this Byzantine style that while the Pisan schools were resistant to Byzantine influence, Byzantine elements still found their way into Pisan pieces. During this time, Pisa was a center of commerce and was involved with trade in the Byzantine East, so it was highly possible that Pisan artists would have been exposed to the Byzantine tradition of icon painting. It is also possible that Byzantine artists could have influenced local painters through their presence in Pisa. While researchers know a great deal about this crucifix, the artist is a mystery. However, there is suspicion that the cross may be tied to Ugolino de' Tedici, the brother of Enrico de' Tedici. Not only is he the artist of a crucifix very similar in style to the one in Cleveland, with open, downward-turning hands and twisted pear-shaped body, his family was also closely tied to the Archbishop of Pisa at the time, Federico Visconti. There is also suspicion that the artist's last name was Michel. This is supported by evidence located at the bottom of the crucifix. The signature in the lower terminal reads, Michel, son of blank, Vinny painted this. However, the artist is currently unknown. While this and many other apron crosses are beautiful and were very popular during their time, this cross was most likely the last of its kind, for the style became unpopular after 1260 AD.